We had no shortage of shocking video last week. Let's talk about that clip of Senator Alex Padilla being handcuffed and forcibly removed from a press conference with the Secretary of Homeland Security. We spoke right after that. Why were you so appalled?
Well, I've known Alex Padilla going back over 20 years. He is a very decent and honorable public servant. He is normally a very mild-mannered person, and I was just shocked to see that video, and I watched it over and over again. And you know what stuck out to me are a couple of things. Number one, it is inconceivable to me that Kristi Noem did not know who Senator Alex Padilla was. Senator Padilla is the ranking member on the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee on Immigration that has direct oversight over Kristi Noem and her work at Homeland Security. So to think, even for a minute, that she didn't know who he was is ridiculous. And if you watch the video back, she had the opportunity to de-escalate the situation. When Senator Padilla was asking his questions, she could have turned to her detail and said, this is a U.S. Senator, or she could have turned to Senator Padilla and said, Senator, I'm going to need to ask you to calm down. I'd be happy to answer your questions, or we can speak later. She did none of those things. I've been in situations, Joey, over the years where you have people who are confrontational or who want to interrupt you. And, you know, clearly Senator Padilla wanted to ask his questions.
Was it a mistake for him to interrupt in that fashion, though?
Well, I think it's a mistake for her not to be more forthright to begin with in answering questions from members of Congress, both Senate and House.
But in retrospect, should he have waited?
Well, I think in hindsight, had Senator Padilla known the unbelievably disproportionate response, I'm sure he may have treated the situation differently. But what was so shocking to me is that he was then pinned to the ground and handcuffed, a sitting United States Senator, the senior U.S. Senator, after he was allowed into the room by law enforcement. That's the other thing that made no sense. If you take the word of those involved that the detail did not know Senator Padilla's identity, and let's take them at that word, the Secret Service agents who were protecting Secretary Noem, they had their job to do. There was no communication between the law enforcement officials that let Senator Padilla in the room in the first place and that detail. And that's clearly a huge mistake as well. Once he was on the ground and handcuffed, they clearly knew who he was then. And that's when I believe it was Corey Lewandowski, according to the reports, who said, let him go, let him go. What I will tell you is, at the end of the day, if it can happen to Senator Alex Padilla, it can happen to anybody. And you know, the last thing I'll mention on this is Dan Bongino, who's the number 2 at FBI. He said that Senator Padilla wasn't wearing his pin. You know, these pins that we get really are only for use in the Capitol. I'm wearing one today because we've got some events here, and because I want to wear my pin because it looks nice, but it's not because I have to, because law enforcement is going to come and get me if I don't. That is only to identify yourself as a member of the House or Senate when you're in the Capitol. Senator Padilla had a shirt that said U.S. Senate. And, you know, so the whole argument that he needed to wear his pin is just nonsense.
The fallout from this incident, do you fear that it added fuel to the other side's fiery talking points, or do you think it helped your party make a statement?
I don't know. Look, I think at the end of the day, it's just another unfortunate example of the administration not wanting any sort of dissent. And again, Secretary Noem, she was a member of Congress. She knows who Alex Padilla is. He has direct oversight over her department. She could have de-escalated the situation, and she intentionally chose not to do any sort of de-escalation, but rather to allow her detail and the other law enforcement there to literally, put him on his back, handcuff him in the hallway, the senior U.S. Senator from California. That, to me, is just another example of the complete rejection of any dissent from this administration. And that, fundamentally, that is anti-democratic, and that is not consistent with the First Amendment or consistent with, decades and decades of precedent in the United States.